Talk to us about some of these barriers to commerce between the provinces in the country.
Well, actually, this is a topic that I'm actually very passionate about because I think if a lot of Canadians understood what I know about interprovincial trade barriers and how there's so much self-imposed red tape here at home within Canada, I think that there would be much more of a call to action to have this change. And I know we're starting to hear some good conversation happening because of the current threat with the U.S. tariffs. We're starting to hear some of the right kind of conversations happening about breaking these barriers down. But I mean, I think the average Canadian on the street doesn't fully understand when we say interprovincial trade barriers, what does that mean? And so if I may, I'd just like to have a Canadian moment here and talk about beer. I know journalists probably know this story, but I don't know how many Canadians know the story that in 2013, a man from New Brunswick crossed the border into Quebec. He bought beer. He crossed back into his province of New Brunswick. He was stopped by the RCMP, given a ticket for just under $300. He fought that ticket all the way up to the Supreme Court of Canada and lost. Why did he get a ticket? Because he had brought too much beer back from Quebec to New Brunswick. I think when you think about that, what are we talking about? We're facing some of the strongest trade wins that we've ever faced with the United States.
Right.
As you heard Minister Anand say, if we could get out of our own way, there's up to $200 billion a year in economic boost that it would cause, that would just by breaking down some of these interprovincial trade barriers.
So we're looking at least a $200 billion boost. Now, Anita Anand spoke just about 20 minutes ago or so, saying there are a few recommendations. She mentioned implementing mutual recognition, respecting in rules in place for jurisdictions, reducing exceptions in Canadian Free Trade Act, and to facilitate labor mobility across the country. Do you think this is sufficient or more needs to be done?
I think that's a great start. I mean, it's a better start than we've maybe seen in years. And when you talk about that 2017 Canadian Free Trade Agreement, you just mentioned getting rid of some of the carve-outs. There are over 300 carve-outs. If that was a free trade agreement between Canada and another country, we probably would have never signed that free trade agreement with so many exceptions. So I think that we have an opportunity to get out of our own way and to become our own best trading partner. And, if I wanted to order a bottle of wine, I live in Ontario. If I wanted to order a bottle of wine from the Okanagan and have it delivered to me in Ontario, I can't do it. If I lived in Manitoba or Nova Scotia, I could do it. Yet if I lived in Maine and I wanted to order a bottle of California wine, I could do it. We're too small a country to be playing these regional protectionist type of games. We need to become, like I said earlier, our own best trading partner, and we need to emulate the United States with their interstate commerce.
Yes.
We need to emulate that model with our interprovincial commerce.
Speaking of that, the Prime Minister, actually, this news came in earlier this morning, is convening a Canada-US economic summit on Friday here in Toronto. What are some of your expectations from that summit?
Well, I'm really hoping that we can put reality on the table and start talking about some of the things like the perception of an imbalanced trade deficit with the United States. I think we've all heard now, because of all the actions that have been taken over the past week or so with the United States and the potential trade war and the tariffs. I think many Canadians have heard through media and whatnot that if you were to remove crude from the equation, Canada and the United States has a surplus with the United States, not a deficit. So, I mean, I'm very much hoping that calm, cool heads prevail and that truth and reality and numbers that speak to the truth are put on the table, and that hopefully we can, carve out a new path forward, because I do think that that's what's needed. I think the old way of our old relationship with the United States and the things that we used to take for granted are changing. We need to forge a new relationship.
Joy Nott, partner in trade and customs at KPMG. Appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you for joining us, Joy.
Thank you for having me, Akshay.